Hello and welcome back for Chapter 6, Digital Locksmithing, Cryptography, and Encryption. So before we jump in, let me just let you know that the ISC2 outcomes that we're going to discuss are vast during this chapter. So we are looking at 1.1, understanding security concepts. We're going to bring back confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We're going to discuss non-repudiation and definitely hit on privacy. 4.3, understanding network infrastructure. Primarily, we're going to discuss a little bit about VPN, and we'll continue on in that lecture series, really diving into network security. We're going to look at understanding data security, symmetric, asymmetric, and hashing, as well as understanding network threats and attacks. So we'll look at cryptographic attacks, some of which we've already talked about briefly, but we're going to look at these from a cryptographic method. So let's go ahead and jump right in. You know, I always like to start with a little bit of history and the importance within cybersecurity. And really, in cybersecurity, this is our vault. This is where we hide the treasures from our digital empire. Okay? And as digital locksmiths, i.e. cybersecurity professionals, digital defenders as I like to call them, we use cryptographic techniques to construct virtual lock and keys that protect this data while at rest and during transport. And as we'll see, we are going to leverage a lot of different cryptographic methods, not just one, so that we're protecting data in different ways. That way, if somebody gets the keys to the vault, they're not getting all of the treasures, as you might think. So a little history here. The Caesar cipher, named after Julius Caesar, obviously, a substitution cipher that shifts each letter by a fixed number of positions. And we're actually going to use this because it's a very easy cipher to understand. Thus, it's very unsecure. We wouldn't use it in modern day, but it'll give us an opportunity to look at some different terminology and examples using the Caesar cipher. So Egyptians followed with the hieroglyphics, and as we know, we're still finding unique hieroglyphics today, still trying to figure out what those are. So that code was pretty darn good. So Spartans, followed along, employed the Skytail, which is a transposition cipher for security and military communications. So Middle Ages come about. I would suggest you pause and read these slides as we talk about them. And just as a reminder, and I'll remind you when we get to the first term, when there's a term that's important, it is formatted in bold gray followed by orange for its definition. So those are ones that you're going to want to take notes, you're going to want to write down. So take us further into the Renaissance, if you will, and here's Leon Battista Alberti, who invented the polyalphabetic cipher. So using multiple substitution alphabets to increase the encryption complexity. Now today, basic computers could break that just like that, right? So a lot of these we're not using, but just like you're learning the history, you're learning the foundation, because I'm not just preparing you for the exam, I'm preparing you for the foundation you need as a future IT cybersecurity professional. So consequently, we're talking about more. What we're learning here are these ciphers that led to the modern day ciphers that we have today. So followed in the 16th and 18th century. That brings us to World War II. Big things happened here. Notable successes by British Room 40 and the American Cipher Bureau. World War II brings around advanced cryptography and the German Enigma machine, right? Of which Alan Turing from Bletchley Park broke the Enigma encryption messages. So figured out what those messages said, and consequently hugely impactful in the Allied victory of modern computational cryptography. If you haven't learned about it, check out the Turing machine. Really cool, historic as it pertains to your career. So post-war, public key encryption, the Diffie-Hellman developed that, and then RSA. So Rivas, Shamir, and Alderman. A couple pictures of them, little history, if you will. There's Alan Turing. Let's continue on. So for this section here, again, just a brief history. I cannot encourage you enough as I already have and will continue to do, I'm going to suggest great books. And as it pertains to cryptography, the history, learning cryptography, the code book just cannot be beat. And by the way, this is a nerd book that it was on the New York Times, bestseller. So amazing book on cryptography. It gets into the German Enigma machine. It gets into cryptography. I consider myself to be a fairly decent smart as it is pertaining smart. I mean, heck, I'm a nerd, right? I went into computer science. So consequently, I can tell you, I had to read some of these sections 2 or 3 times and go out to YouTube to get a little bit more information. As you read about the German Enigma, if you want to hear the story from someone involved, F.W. Winterbotham, who you'll read about in the code book, also wrote a book called The Ultra Secret. And that's a pretty old book, but if you can get your hands on it, that is a great book to look at as well. All right, folks, here we go. Let's jump into the content. Enough history. Let's bring it to the current. So we're going to look at the basics of cryptography here. And so let me just assure you of some of those terms, Turing and RSA and cryptography and all those terms got you a little confused. Don't worry, we're going to break this down for you. So in this chapter, we'll break it down. We'll introduce the basic concepts and essential terms within cryptography. Think of this as, learning the alphabet before you write a textbook, like the textbook that I'm writing to go with these lectures. So you'll be equipped with the knowledge to decode complex mechanisms. We're not going to get into the math of cryptography, so no worries. We're going to stay on the surface level of this topic here. So why cryptography? Well, cryptography is huge when it comes to trust and privacy. So it underpins trust and privacy in digital interactions. We then know that the messages we're receiving are in fact what we should receive. They haven't been modified. That trust extends to our customers when we encrypt their personal identifiable information. It protects against sophisticated threats, as we'll see, and it is a fundamental cybersecurity component. Anyone in information technology, not just cybersecurity, needs to understand some of these cryptographic methods that are used as traffic, say, traverses the internet, it traverses our local network, etc., and, is used, perhaps, hopefully, you're using it when you back up your computer to encrypt that backup. So if somebody gets that drive, they can't just restore your backup. Okay, so again, bringing back confidentiality, integrity, and availability from the CIA triad. Primarily, confidentiality and integrity are here. Okay, this is what cryptography is. It ensures that data is accessible only by authorized individual. It protects the sensitive information from unauthorized access when it is encrypted, right? It ensures the accuracy and completeness of data by preventing unauthorized alterations, as we'll see when we talk about hashing and downloading software from the internet. So availability doesn't play as much, although there is sort of this indirect association. Encryption supports it by safeguarding data from corruption and breaches. Thus, if it's available when we need it. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So let's first of all look at the basics of the Caesar cipher, because again, we're going to use this within our lecture. So the Caesar cipher is one of the most straightforward encryption techniques to learn. It's basically what's called a step encryption in an alphabetic, what would you call that? Alphabetic method. So as you can see here, in our example, we're going to do a 3-step forward in the English alphabet. So A, when we do 1, 2, 3, is going to become D. Okay, we can step forward by any number. We can step back by any number. If we stepped back A by 1, it would become Z. And so that becomes our key, as we'll talk about in just a minute. So let's look at some basic terms. First of all, unencrypted text is plain text. It really is that simple. It's the message in its natural readable form. So in our example, we have the word cybersecurity, and just to keep it simple, I made it all caps. the plain text of the word cybersecurity is just that. It's the word cybersecurity in its readable format. Now, when we go about, I like to think of plain text as a noun. Encryption is a verb, okay? And cryptography is sort of a noun too. We'll get to that. But encryption is a verb. It transforms confidential information, right, into a form that individuals can only read with the proper permission. The permission being the ability to decrypt it and read the plain text message. So in our case, you know, that Caesar cipher, A will become D, B will become E, C will become F, D will become G. So if you stop and just think about that, that is going to be our little shift of 3 up the alphabet. Okay, that's going to be our key. So ciphertext is simply the altered form of the plain text message rendered unreadable. So if you didn't know that we were using the Caesar cipher and you received the message on the bottom, FBEH, UVH, FXULWB, you'd go, what the heck is that, right? You might not even realize, you might just think it's gibberish. You might not even realize that it's ciphertext. So using that code, I encourage you to stop the video here, grab a notepad, write cybersecurity, shift your alphabet, and see if you come up with this same ciphertext. So the key to all of this, right, the key that unlocks the vault is that rule. Okay, it's a piece of information that determines the output of the cryptographic algorithm. It's the rule that we use to encrypt the data. And of course, decryption is just the process in reverse. It's taking that ciphertext, utilizing our key in reverse, and coming back to the plain text that then becomes readable. So as we put all of those things together, we put our plain text, we encrypt it, we've got our ciphertext, we've got our key, we've got all of that. All of that makes up what's called an encryption system. It is everything from the algorithms to the process, and in our case, with technology, hardware, software, procedures that are used to encrypt and decrypt our information that we want secured, okay? They are robust in cybersecurity. Such systems are fundamental for implementing effective data protection. Any data at rest that's personal identifiable information should be encrypted. Your backups should be encrypted, okay? So the Caesar cipher encryption system is, as I said, the plain text, the shift key, the ciphertext, and then, of course, the process, the verbs of encryption and decryption. Now, again, I would suggest pausing these, write down these terms as we come around to them, okay? So, two folks that make this happen. One is the cryptographer. That's the person who creates the systems using mathematical techniques. Again, we're not going to get into the math, to design and develop cryptographic algorithms and protocols used to secure communication, thus protecting our data. Right? And then we've got the other side, which is the person that's trying to break the work of the cryptographer. How secure is that algorithm that you came up with? How secure is that encryption system? Well, that's the job of the cryptanalysts, and they use, again, those same mathematical techniques and different mathematical techniques to defeat cryptographic systems. And you'll learn about that in the code book. So again, I highly suggest you read that. So that's going to be it for this section. Part 2 we'll get into, and we'll be starting with advanced cryptographic techniques. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day, and I hope you're learning a ton. Take care.